Spots of light rain and drizzle for north and west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too. Another warm one in the southeast. Temperatures here up to 27 degrees and lots of sunshine then to take us through the weekend, particularly in the south. Bit cloudy for the north. Elsewhere though, lots of warmth on offer.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, Boris Johnson is still clinging on to his premiership, vowing that he's Britain's best option.
I look at the pressures that people are under and the need for government to focus on their priorities, which is what we are doing. I look at the biggest war in Europe for 80 years, and I cannot for the life of me see how it is responsible just to walk away from that.
But the government could be collapsing in front of his eyes on an extraordinary day in Westminster, facilitated by a media witch hunt that's been going on for months. Why is the stability and future of our country some sort of parlour game for the MSM?
And today tried to defend...
What? I'm terribly sorry, we have to stop there. Rishi Sunak has resigned. The Chancellor has resigned. That is it.
That's it.
Folks, it's over.
That's it.
It's the end of, this is the end of Boris Johnson's government.
My digest next, then I'll get my superstar panel's reaction to the Tory bloodbath. Tonight, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Plattel, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. Then at 10:20, I'll speak to the man who knows Boris best, his father and former MEP Stanley Johnson, for an insight into what's going through the PM's mind as his colleagues desert him, plus what's he going to do next. And as Boris weighs up his next move, is there a way to save his premiership? Anne Widdecombe, who knows a little something about the internal politics of the Tories as a former minister, gives her verdict at 9:50. Perhaps Boris can remind rebels of his unshakable base. What do you think? Despite everything, does the Tory party have more chance of winning the next election with him as Prime Minister? I've got a huge political panel on this tonight. Former Tory MP Louise Mensch, ex-advisor to Margaret Thatcher Niall Gardner, Daily Mail political columnist Andrew Pearce, Conservative commentator Alex Dean, political YouTuber Maya Toosey. They're all going to battle it out in the clash at 9:25 alongside your verdict. Or should Boris just face the music and resign in order to avoid Javid bringing the Tory party down with him to echo the warning of his former Brexit ally, Lord Frost. We'll debate at 10:30. If Boris does go, mark my words, the battle for Brexit will be back on. Spiked Online's Brendan O'Neill says it's vital that the next Tory leader and PM is a Brexiteer. He'll deliver his call to action in The Outsider at 9:40. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer's smelt blood in the water and used the opportunity to call for a general election.
No longer a case about swapping the person at the top. Isn't it clear? The only way the country can get the fresh start it deserves is by getting rid of a lot of them.
So, with a Labour government a greater possibility than ever, should we fear Tony Blair forcing his way back into a position of power? You know my thoughts on this, and tonight, columnist extraordinaire Rod Little issues a word of warning and uncancelled at 10:40. Plus, it's a possibility we sadly have to entertain. Who is the best option to replace Boris as Tory leader and PM? We'll take a look at the runners and riders in the media buzz at 10. You'll discover through the show too how tomorrow's newspapers react to these incredible developments today that might have pushed Boris to the brink. And Greatest Britain Union Jackass will close the show as per at 10:50. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. In a moment, I'll explain why I think the jubilant MSM should be very happy their little anti-Boris witch hunt's been so successful. But the news first here on GB News, so let's get the breaking details live from Westminster now with our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Darren, so Boris, he's locked in at number 10 Downing Street and he ain't going anywhere.
He really isn't. He is digging in tonight as Prime Minister, insisting, as you say, he will not resign. He is certainly not going to go tonight, despite clearly several cabinet ministers earlier on, Dan, going into number 10, saying effectively the game is up. He is not listening to that message. He wants to fight on. He argues to focus on the issues that matter to the British public, like, for example, the economy. The problem is that many within his party, many within government, certainly within his cabinet, have got very, very different ideas, to the point where it looks like this is going to be forced to a vote of no confidence next week. The Prime Minister says he's prepared for that, but at the moment, is he likely to win it? You'd have to conclude, given the number of resignations, given the number of no confidence letters we've seen published today, that seems pretty unlikely indeed. Not least of all, and I'll give you an example of this, Dan, Jacob Young, who is normally a massive loyalist to Boris Johnson, in Redcar, has come out tonight and said he needs to go, the country needs to move forward. If he's losing people like Jacob Young, it means he's lost a lot of parliamentary support.
OK, well, Darren McCaffrey, you're at number 10. I know you're speaking to all of your sources, so look, the moment that anything breaks tonight, please do come back to us. Thank you very much to Darren. But let's go now, before I get to my digest and my superstar panel, for a roundup of everything that's gone on today with Olivia Guthrie.
Cheers.
Actually, I'm Ray Addison. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. Boris Johnson has vowed to continue as Prime Minister despite several members of his cabinet telling him to step down.
Mr Shapps, is the Prime Minister going to resign?
Transport Secretary Grant Shapps was spotted leaving number 10 following a meeting in which they called for him to quit. The Times is also reporting that Home Secretary Priti Patel is among those urging him to go. Other ministers include Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis and Welsh Secretary Simon Hart. It follows a meeting of the 1922 committee in which backbench MPs decided not to change the rules and push for another vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. Instead, the decision has been put on hold until after the group chooses a new executive next Monday. For those of you watching on television, we're now seeing live pictures from Downing Street as the Prime Minister settles in for the evening. At least 39 MPs have now resigned from government positions within the last 24 hours. However, Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries has expressed her support, along with Energy Minister Greg Hands and Brexit Opportunities Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg. The resignations follow concerns over Boris Johnson's handling of a sexual misconduct scandal involving former Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher. Mr Johnson has voiced his regret that Mr Pincher continued to hold office, saying he should have realised he wouldn't change. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has accused the Prime Minister of enabling a sexual predator.
I started this session with a quote from the young victim in all this, how he froze when he was attacked. When I was prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex, it's about power. And the power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible.
Well, the first cabinet minister to resign last night was former Health Secretary Sajid Javid. He says he quit because he couldn't risk losing his integrity. In his resignation statement in the Commons earlier, Mr Javid said, "Enough is enough."
But I do fear that the reset button can only work so many times. There's only so many times you can turn that machine on and off before you realise that something is fundamentally wrong. Last month, I gave the benefit of doubt one last time. I have concluded that the problem starts at the top, and I believe that is not going to change.
On TV, online and on DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
If there's ever been a day to feel depressed about the state of the MSM and political establishment in this country, then this is it. This is all just a parlour game to them. As I have been reporting for the past 6 months, the moment Boris Johnson turned away from COVID lockdowns and vowed to open the country, the Westminster witch hunt began. It's been virtually impossible for the government to focus on a political agenda to save the economy in the midst of a cost of living crisis and attempt to avoid a European war with its support of Ukraine, because no matter the story, the BBC, Sky News, ITV News, Channel 4 News and so many others would bring it back to the PM having to resign. I mean, even after he conclusively won that Tory confidence vote just 3 weeks ago, which should have put the matter to bed for 12 months, they still declared he would have to go. This would actually all be farcical if it wasn't so serious. But this past day, the campaign has moved to another level. So let me bring you some of the greatest hits to explain the way the out-of-touch, Boris-hating, Brexit-loathing London Liberal elite think. Today started with Politico's playbook, widely read in Westminster, declaring, "We hope you're keen on popcorn because there will be extra helpings today." Yep, it's just a game to them, folks. Listen to the pure, unadulterated joy on far-left radio station LBC when former BBC presenter Andrew Marr was anything but impartial or professional as he celebrated learning the news the Chancellor Rishi Sunak had quit.
And today tried to defend...
What? I'm terribly sorry, we have to stop there. Rishi Sunak has resigned. The Chancellor has resigned. That is it.
That's it.
Folks, it's over.
That's it.
It's the end of, this is the end of Boris Johnson's government. Rishi Sunak has resigned. Sajid Javid has resigned. The thing has fallen apart.
They might as well have been popping the champagne bottles. And that lot like to claim it's GBNews that isn't balanced. That sort of behaviour actually made it live on air to the BBC, the broadcast that you and I are forced to pay for because we're promised impartiality and fairness. But watch their main politics presenter, Joe Coburn, give an impassioned monologue declaring Boris Johnson is finished.
It's the end game, though, isn't it? You can sit here today and defend the Prime Minister. Your colleague Miriam Cates was there not very long ago doing the same. But even she had to admit he's hanging by a thread. And it's the end game because we've had 2 senior cabinet ministers quit. We're having minister after minister also leaving their jobs and resigning as we sit here in the studios today. We've had people on his own side who did support him merely weeks ago who are saying it's over.
Oh, you missed that crucial bit. At the end, she said, and it is over. Joe Coburn, it's not your job to tell us whether Boris Johnson's over or not. It's your job to report the facts. ITV's political editor, Robert Peston, who claims to be impartial but has been leading an increasingly hostile campaign against Boris Johnson, even used the moment to I actually can't believe I'm saying this, wait for it, promote his new book.
Very exciting news. The paperback has arrived. Holiday reading sorted. It'll be in shops on Thursday. Dado, if the bloke who lives at number 10 will have time to read it. He's got a few things on his plate at the moment. But what about the rest of you?
Can you believe that? I repeat, this is all just a game to them. Peston ended up deleting that video, but luckily, as ever, I've got the receipts. It's a game to Sly News Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates, too.
Are you going to rip up Rishi Sunak's legacy, Mr Zahawi? Are we going to have unfunded tax cuts? Mr Zahawi, you know one step closer. Are you going to spray public money around to save Boris Johnson's skin?
They just love it, don't they? They love this. Not a thought for democracy, not a thought for the folks suffering as a result of a cost of living crisis who can ill afford the country being plunged into a lengthy Tory leadership contest, leaving us effectively leaderless and rudderless. The Boris rebels on the Tories' all-powerful 1922 committee still considering ripping up the rules that gave Boris a mandate just 3 weeks ago. At this point, they haven't, but it could still happen. And as the Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries tweeted, it's truly amazing that the MPs who wrongly claimed the PM broke the rules are now competing to be elected to the 22 committee so that they can be given the chance to break the rules. Thank God for folk like the Honourable Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, who said, to be clear, I am going on Thursday to see brave Ukrainian men and women trained to fight for their lives and their country. I won't be indulging in political parlour games, nor will I be resigning. But even though I have to sadly concede, I don't want to, but I have to sadly concede the premiership of Boris Johnson might be coming to an end, I never forget what this is really about. Arch-Tory Ramona Michael Heseltine summed it up when he said, the cancer at the heart of this dilemma is Brexit. If Boris goes, Brexit goes. Then there's Andrew Adonis. He's the chair of the European movement. He went even further this afternoon. He said, this is a critical point in the battle for the soul of our country, and we can only reclaim our future if politicians from all sides put our country ahead of Boris Johnson. The European movement is the only organisation with the unwavering courage to expose the calamity of Brexit and reopen the conversation about our relationship with Europe that has so devastated Boris Johnson's leadership. All I'm asking you tonight is to not forget what the unrelenting assault on Boris Johnson from the MSM and the political establishment all these months has been about. It's been about destroying Brexit. To respond now, my superstar panel. The Star Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. Amanda, have they finally got what they wanted?
Dan, I have to say, since you've been off for a few weeks, very glad you're back. I hate to start off by disagreeing with you.
Go on, I like that.
The news broadcast from the BBC and Sky and Channel 4, it's not a parlour game to them. It's passionate politics. I mean, they're literally, you have people who are so left-wing that even I couldn't be friends with them. And they are embedded in every single section, especially of the broadcast.
So you think they've been campaigning?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And they see it as their mission. I mean, you've shown fantastic examples of it. We see it every single night. That's why, I can't even listen to the Today programme anymore on BBC. It is so left-wing, but it's not about them just thinking, oh, this is a game, let's see if we can kind of get a Prime Minister. They are deeply, deeply opposed. They've never forgiven the Conservatives for Brexit. They've never forgiven Boris for it. And you're right about that. So we disagree at the beginning, but agree in the end.
Well, yeah, and they've also got
pernicious.
they've also got a vested interest.
It's not an
though.
accident.
No, and they've got a vested interest though too, because think if Boris goes, you know what's going to happen? Yeah. There's going to be a more mild Tory leader, and you know what will be safe? Channel 4 won't be sold, and the BBC licence fee will be safe.
Yep. The whole lot. So they've got not just a personal vested interest, but a deep-seated personal political interest.
Yeah, I agree. Adam Brooks, you obviously supported Boris Johnson because you were a big Brexiteer. You wavered, like I did, over the lockdowns. He then freed us. Do you still back Boris tonight?
Again, I'm going to go back to what I always say. Sometimes it's better the devil you know. And you hit a nerve there when it said that they're not journalists, a lot of these people, they're activists.
They are.
They are activists that are peddling this night after night, day after day, for an end game.
He didn't have a chance, did he?
But without being honest, you know, at least if you're a Labour politician, you've got your brand on your chest.
Yeah.
You know, you're out there saying, this is who I am.
Well, like us, we admit who we support.
Exactly, but they are embedded.
Look, Dan, I will never forget what Boris and this government did to my industry during COVID, and you know, the consequences, what we're seeing, mental health, children and such. But, you know, it's, I don't know who's going to take over, and it's that sort of, we need clarity of where it's going to go.
More rumours are emerging tonight, and we'll obviously bring them to you as soon as they're confirmed. But Nigel Nelson, the BBC are reporting tonight that Michael Gove has been sacked. That seems like a major development.
It will be a major development if that's true. I mean, I didn't know that. I know Michael Gove had seen the Prime Minister earlier on today. He was with him before Prime Minister's questions. He was noticeably absent during Prime Minister's questions. And as we understand it, Michael Gove said, look, the game's up, it's time to go.
And he didn't turn up at PMQs, although he's supposed to have briefed him for the
Briefed him for
session.
PMQs.
But then, you know, why would you sack Michael Gove? I mean, he's never going to become...
Because he's a snake.
Well, you know, he should have sacked him a long time ago.
Exactly that.
But it's a curious thing to do now.
Well, it seems to me, Amanda, like Michael Gove told Boris earlier today that he didn't support him and he wanted him to go. And so perhaps it's a case of getting him out the door before he could quit and cause more damage to his premiership, and also maybe revenge, of course, for
there's
the leadership.
Well, the others could quit.
If the ship's going down, wouldn't there be some people you just want to chuck overboard, wouldn't there? And Michael Gove would be the first one. I did not say that.
The other cabinet ministers could walk too. I mean, the whole thing is that they are telling Boris Johnson tonight, it's time he resigned. It certainly is time he resigned. There's no way that he can carry on. I thought this morning that we were looking at his future numbered in days. Now I think it's in hours. And I think by tomorrow he will be gone.
Well, Stephen Swinford, the highly respected political editor of The Times, saying as well that Boris Johnson has sacked Michael Gove. And it does look like this is a response to the fact that Gove, who was the Levelling Up Secretary, Adam, told Boris to go earlier today. Do you think it's the right move for Boris to say, actually, the people who I need around me have to be supported?
Look, we're sort of in the dark. The people that are around Boris know what's going on. We can guess, and there's been a few sort of media outlets that have guessed wrong today on certain things. I like the fact that that sent a signal to me. You know,
but there's still life in the old dog.
Look, I cannot stand Michael Gove. I do not trust the man. Many people like me, we fear the likes of Michael Gove, Jeremy Hunt for COVID restrictions and other things in the winter. So for me to hear this news, it's good. I don't know what's brought that about.
Yeah, but hang on, guys.
Nigel, how many people can he sack in his cabinet?
Well, good question.
He doesn't have a cabinet anymore.
Well, exactly. That's the whole point.
When you've got the ones who've resigned.
At the moment, we know so far that at least 39, if it's Michael Gove, that's 40. 39 government ministers and aides have already gone. Now, there is a limit to how many you can actually lose. At the moment, Britain is progressively becoming more and more ungovernable. These ministers have left their desks, papers strewed all over them, walked out and said, Boris Johnson must go, otherwise we cannot serve. Well, we've got to get them back to work so as we can actually carry on with the running of the country.
But Amanda, I've just been looking, and a number 10 source has told Chris Mason, who is the political editor of the BBC, and this is a quote, "You cannot have a snake who is not with you on any of the big arguments, who then gleefully briefs the press that he has called for the leader to go. You cannot operate like that." And I would agree. You can't. The whole point of cabinet government is that you have to have collective cabinet responsibility.
Well, Dan, you're absolutely right, but it does support the fact that Boris has no intention of going, because if he was really thinking he'd be out by tonight and Carrie be taking the expensive Lulu sofas out in a van before someone else tried to move in.
He ain't going anywhere. He ain't going anywhere, is he?
He's actually, by sacking Gove, he's stamping his authority. Yeah. What little may be left.
But there wouldn't be any authority left. I mean, if you're losing cabinet minister after cabinet minister,
we don't know
that authority is going.
We don't know how many others. I mean, there's still I think Priti Patel's still
Come
in
on,
there,
come on.
I think.
There's a lot of big beasts. There are a lot of big beasts still in that cabinet. Ben Wallace, Priti Patel, Steve Barclay, Nadhim Zahawi, Liz Truss. These are important people.
Well, Nadhim Zahawi is one of the people going in tonight telling him he's actually got to go.
But we don't know that.
That is a guess.
We don't know that.
We don't know that because Nadine Dorries was at number 10 as well. But look, let me just repeat.
Wearing a fabulous dress.
She looked amazing.
Which I know. Didn't she look great? That was
Not that
like
it matters, Amanda.
Not that it matters, darling. I'm not interested in things like
Look, it's going to be an extraordinary night. We've just begun. Boris has sacked Michael Gove. He's out. He's finally got his revenge. Amanda Patel, Adam Brooks, Nigel Nelson, my superstar panel, they are here with me all night. Remember, Boris's dad, Stanley Johnson, coming in to give us the lowdown as well. But also still to come, will the Brexit battle be won by Remainers without Boris? Spiked Online's Brendan O'Neill says it's vital that ex-Tory leader and PM is a Brexiteer. He's tonight's outsider at 9:40. But next, does the Tory party have more chance of winning the next election with Boris as Prime Minister? A blockbuster lineup of Alex Dean, Andrew Pearce, Maya Toosey, Niall Gardner and Louise Mensch battle it out next in the clash. Let me know what you think too. Email me, Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet at gbnews. Our poll running there too. My goodness, the results are going to be fascinating tonight. I'll reveal them after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
What a night. Time now for the clash. And breaking tonight, Michael Gove has reportedly been sacked by Boris Johnson after the Levelling Up Secretary called for the PM to resign earlier today. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries is remaining loyal and has said cabinet ministers are still backing Boris. That's despite a reportedly pretty strong view across the 1922 committee of Tory backbenchers that he should go. Earlier today, the PM was still in fighting spirit and questioned by MPs later. He explained why he had a duty to stay in office.
Just on a very human level, surely you must know that it's in the country's interest for you to leave now.
I look at the issues that this country faces. I look at the pressures that people are under and the need for government to focus on their priorities, which is what we are doing. I look at the biggest war in Europe for 80 years, and I cannot for the life of me see how it is responsible just to walk away from that, as I said earlier on in PMQs, particularly not when you have a mandate of the kind that we won 2-3 years ago.
Unlikely as it may seem right now, Boris may still be able to chart a path to a snap poll that could see him defend that large majority he currently still has. So what do you think? Does the Tory party have more chance of winning the next election with Boris Johnson as Prime Minister? Email me, Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet at gbnews. Our poll running there right now. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Now, let me get to my superstar panel on this. I think we're going to go to Darren McCaffrey, actually, who... Oh, sorry, we'll get Darren McCaffrey in soon, but let's go to the Clash guests now. Alex Dean, the Conservative commentator, is with me. Suzanne Evans, the former UKIP politician too, the political YouTuber Maya Tusi, the former advisor to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the former Tory MP, Louise Mensch, who remains a Boris supporter. So, Louise, let me get your reaction first to this news that Boris is staying at number 10 Downing Street, and tonight he has sacked the Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove.
I think that the most likely scenario for why Gove has been sacked is that Gove said he was imminently about to resign. So you head that off at the pass. Because Boris said, whatever happens, I'm not resigning tonight, that's a done deal. If he got wind that Michael Gove was going to come in and stick in the knife to Briton, he probably decided to push him out of the way first, and that's why he's been sacked. I think there are two options for what might happen now. He might resign tomorrow morning, calmly, after he's taken the night to write a good political speech, or he might say, I'm going to wait for the 1922 committee to have that vote, because it gives me at least a few days to at least check the maths and see if I can pull this one out. And that's more like the Boris that we all know. He's not going to give up easy.
Andrew Pearce, consultant editor of the Daily Mail, one of the most connected men in Westminster. Andrew, what are you hearing? What do you make of this move by Boris tonight?
Well, don't they say revenge is a dish best eaten cold? And, of course, Michael Gove stabbed Boris Johnson in the back and the front in the 2016 general election. So it would have been a delicious delight for him to have got rid of him tonight. And I suspect it is, as Louise says. Michael Gove was out there early on saying that cabinet minister is going to tell Boris Johnson to go and that he will go. And Michael Gove has been punished in the ultimate way. Big blow for him and his authority, because if, as I suspect, Boris Johnson is gone in a few days, does Michael Gove get brought back? Because he is the longest serving cabinet minister, the only one who was there in David Cameron's first government. But I think what I think about Boris Johnson, Dan, the question is he the most effective fighting force they've got? The reason he's still there so far is because no MPs can coalesce around an alternative candidate who they think will do a better job than Boris Johnson. However, I think he is now completely hobbled by the number of MPs resigning. They're not very significant MPs, it has to be said. Parliamentary private secretaries, they don't even get paid. They're just bag carriers. But there will be more resignations, and I suspect the number of names going into Sir Graham Brady's committee will get very close to 40, 50%. So on Monday, when we get the new executive for the 22, they could well say to the Prime Minister, if he's still there, we're going to change the rules, and these are the number of seats you're going to lose, and then he might resign. But I think we are entering the end days of Boris Johnson, and I think it's a tragedy because he had the potential to be a great, great Prime Minister.
Alex Dean, picking up one of those points from Andrew Pearce, you think Boris is still the best we've got?
Yeah, I do think that. And I think, furthermore, a significant proportion of those who voted Conservative as recently as 2019 will think with some justification that it's completely wrong for the parliamentary party to sling out the Prime Minister mid-term between general elections, since he's the person they wanted to lead our country when they voted Conservative and therefore got those MPs elected. Many of those members of Parliament owe their seats foursquare to Boris Johnson. And I think that's going to be especially regarded as the case when he's just won a vote of confidence. So it seems, if these rebels can't get their way under the rules, they then want to change them to have a second vote of confidence. One scenario nobody seems to be considering is, what if the Prime Minister wins that? Are the rebels going to try and have a third?
Well, indeed. Look, my political masterminds, just hang on there one moment, because I'm going to go back to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's at number 10 Downing Street. Darren, do you have confirmation? Is it true that Michael Gove has been sacked by Boris Johnson tonight?
Indeed, he has. Quite extraordinary stuff, Dan. We believe the Prime Minister spoke to Michael Gove on the phone in the last 15, 20 minutes. And yes, we can confirm that he has been sacked by the Prime Minister. Dynasty source telling me essentially that you cannot go around briefing the press, which he was earlier on today, that he would resign if the Prime Minister was not prepared to go. This line, though, the most telling, it says it's not the first time he's been treacherous and disloyal. Reminder, of course, what happened back in 2016 when Boris Johnson tried to run for the leadership of the party and Michael Gove stabbed him, not just in the back, but in the front too. It may well be a sweet moment for Boris Johnson, but in many ways, this is also a sign of just how chaotic things are behind the scenes there, and actually in what a difficult position the Prime Minister is in. But he's clearly trying to assert some authority tonight. I think the big question for Boris in all of this is whether he can find, if there are more cabinet resignations or indeed ministerial resignations, whether he can find equatable talent within the party to replace them. I think that's going to be ultimately the big test for the Prime Minister in the hours to come.
Oh, look, there's a lot of talent on that Conservative backbench. OK, Darren McCaffrey, stick at it. Maybe we'll get more resignations. Maybe we'll even get a new Levelling Up secretary while we're on air. So that's Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, live from number 10. Back to my political masterminds now. Niall Gardner, former advisor to Margaret Thatcher. Your reaction to that confirmation that Boris has sacked the treacherous Michael Gove, according to a number 10 source there?
Well, it's certainly been a brutal 24 hours, and I expect that you're going to see, potentially more sackings, more resignations from ministers. But my view is that, the damage done to Britain's Conservatives today is immense, actually, and it makes no sense for a government where you have an over 80-seat majority to be forming some kind of circular firing squad here. It just really, I think, defies the expectations of the British people here. Nothing good, I think, will come from this. And I think it's a destructive path forward. The big winners, of course, from all of this will be on the left. And, the Labour Party, the Liberals, the Scottish Nationalists are gloating. They're looking forward to taking on the Conservatives in a perhaps early general election. They're hoping for a victory. Many within those parties seek to reverse Brexit. This is part of their agenda here, without a doubt. And so I think the stakes are incredibly high here. And, the path that the Conservatives are going down at the moment is hugely risky. It's destructive. It's a game of Russian roulette. We don't know what the outcome may be here. There are, a multitude of potential contenders to replace Boris Johnson. Some of them are very strong. Some of them are, I would describe as being on the left wing of the party. It would be a huge mistake for the Conservatives to go back to the days of Theresa May or David Cameron or John Major. That kind of leadership would be, I think, fatal for the Conservatives. And Boris Johnson is a proven winner. He has demonstrated, very strong leadership skills with regard to delivering Brexit. The 2016 referendum, that was a huge success. Also, the 2019 general election victory was a huge success. So he is somebody with a track record of winning. And now the Conservatives may be taking a huge leap into the dark. I just have a sense of foreboding about what may happen next year and also about the future of Brexit itself.
Well, I'm with you there, but Maya Tusi, you say Boris has got to go. Why?
Only in terms of logically, in a sense that at this point, it doesn't really matter who started the witch hunt or if there's a coup. The battle is getting to the end, and it is a bit of a mess. And actually, I'll be honest, on paper, technically, Boris had more of a chance to win compared to even the existing options in the cabinet or in a parliamentary party. But the reality is, compared to the even 2017 situation with Theresa May, the 2019 situation with Theresa May, that seemed more of a proactive campaign to remove her because Boris Johnson was basically waiting to become the main contender. This time, it's more reactive, and that's actually the danger for the Tory party because on the one hand, I could say that, Boris, whether we like it or not, it's difficult now for him to stay and to get his act together and enough people to give top jobs to them and actual talent. But at the same time, there is no real alternative. You might say there are some good talents in the cabinet or in the parliamentary party, but the Tory party are very always cautious about randomly giving chance to people. We don't elect your Ed Miliband's or Jeremy Corbyn's. We the Tory party tend to make sure that they know what they do.
Louis, Louise Minch, isn't it just giving in to the political establishment and the MSM by giving up on Boris Johnson? And isn't it depressing to see so many of your fellow Tories do that?
I hope maybe that he'll take the weekend to see if he can make this case to Conservative MPs and to the Conservative Party. Would we do well in a general election right now with Boris Johnson as leader? Even as his supporter, I'll tell you that the answer is no. But the Conservative Party wouldn't do well in an election that comes right now, no matter who is the leader. So my question is, how many of you want to lose your seat? The only way that we're going to do well in an election is if we have a small period of stable government. And if I were the Prime Minister, I'd offer to do a deal. I'd offer to resign at, let's say, the end of the year, so I could finish up in my own way, but still have that stability. If he offers big tax cuts, if he let Boris be Boris, maybe we will be able to recover. One thing's for sure, whoever leads the Conservative Party, if we have an election in the forthcoming future, the Conservative Party and the Conservative MPs are going to get thrashed. And I hope they remember that when the phones start buzzing over the weekend.
Andrew Pearce, where does the Mail stand on this? You know, you've been a real Boris-supporting newspaper in a strident editorial on Monday. You still said this is the best man to lead Britain, and also the man most likely to stop that dreaded SNP, Lib Dem, Labour, Green alliance that Niall talks about.
We are still backing him, and here's the point, Danny. What most politicians, presidents and prime ministers around the world think about what's going on in Britain today.
Oh, I know.
Prime Minister would be brought down over a backbench MP nobody's ever heard of, over whether he did or he didn't get briefed about whether this guy had a drink problem or a groping problem. It's extraordinary. It's not Watergate, is it? It's not cash for honours. It's not cash for questions. It's a trivial, silly dispute which has been blown up out of all proportion. I don't think the Prime Minister and the number 10 machine has helped, but it is astonishing that this man who had an 80-seat majority barely 2.5 years ago is being potentially forced out over a backbencher in a few weeks' time will all have forgotten all about, and not soon enough.
So, Alex Dean, you know, you're a former Conservative advisor. What is the path out here? If you were in number 10, and in the number 10 bunker with Boris Johnson tonight, what would you be advising him if you were trying to find a way for him to stay in power?
Well, he's got to say, I'm going to stay on and fight. And if you want to have a vote, let's have a vote and I'll win it. And then he's got to seek to do as much as he can to persuade the members of his parliamentary party that he's active, that he's not just passive and waiting for events to happen to him, but that he's got a plan and that he's going to act upon it. The trouble for him, for genuine Conservatives, is they'll say, well, if you're going to have tax cuts, why haven't we had them already? If we were going to have a true Conservative agenda, why haven't we had more of it? To which the Prime Minister's answer, well, there was this coronavirus epidemic, is a partial answer, but doesn't completely answer the concerns that people had. On the other hand, the rebels are so diffuse, you know, everything from tax cutting, small state free marketeers who think this government's not Conservative enough, through red wallers who want more levelling up support and funds, state funds, through to the traditional left of the Tory party, which still exists and might rally around Jeremy Hunt, you know, people who basically never accepted that Brexit happened. Those people are so diffuse in their interests that they're going to find it very difficult to coalesce around one single figure. So the other thing that Boris Johnson and his supporters have got to do is say, if not me, then who? It's not good enough just to try and sling Boris out. You've got to say who's going to lead our country. And so on that, first of all, it's very hard to beat somebody with nobody. They're going to have to try and rally around an individual. And secondly, there's a process that goes with that. If you do want that change, it's going to take months. A Tory leadership election right now over a long, hot summer would involve upwards of 10, 12 candidates. They have to get whittled down one by one. And I think number 10 is totally within its rights to say what chaos that would be just when we need leadership the most. If you think stability is absent now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Boy, oh boy, absolutely. Well, fascinating analysis there from all of my political masterminds. That was Alex Dean, the Conservative commentator, also joined by former Tory MP Louise Mensch, former advisor to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Garner, the Daily Mail political columnist and consultant editor Andrew Pearce, and the political YouTuber Maya Tusi. So who do you agree with? Does the Tory party have more chance of winning the next election with Boris Johnson as PM? From Tara on Twitter, if they don't put a Brexiteer in his place, they'll never win. Sir Nigel had better get back on the campaign trail pronto. But no, we want him here on GB News. He can't do that. From Nikki, also on Twitter, she says yes, because all the candidates to replace him are non-entities. Call a general election, Boris, and let the public decide. And from Sue via email, the United Kingdom is finished if Boris goes, as it was Boris that got us out of the EU, and never will I vote again. And actually, I've heard so many of you say that. You voted for Brexit for the first time, as in the first time you'd ever voted. Then you gave your vote at the 2019 election to Boris Johnson. That's valuable. Your verdict now in. Wow, this is close. This is a close one. We're divided. 47% of you agree that the Tories do have more chance of winning a general election with Boris as PM. 53% of you say they do not. Coming up, we're up to 41 government resignations now. But as Boris fights on and weighs up his next move, is there a way to save his premiership? Anne Widdecombe, who knows a little something about the internal politics of the Tories as a former minister, gives her verdict. But next, will the Brexit battle be won by Remainers without Boris? Spiked Online's Brendan O'Neill says it's vital that the next Tory leader and PM is a Brexiteer. He'll deliver his call to action in The Outsider next.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Political firebrand and former Conservative Minister Anne Widdecombe on the way, as is Boris's dad, Stanley Johnson. But first, Brendan O'Neill is tonight's Outsider. And breaking tonight, the number of government resignations has risen to 42, with Danny Kruger resigning as Parliamentary Private Secretary for the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, following the sacking of Levelling Up Secretary himself, Michael Gove. This mass exodus was, of course, sparked by Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid yesterday. The latter today, this afternoon, MPs, his opportunistic resignation from government was offered to protect his own integrity as he launched a savage personal attack on Boris Johnson.
Treading the tightrope between loyalty and integrity has become impossible in recent months. And, Mr. Speaker, I will never risk losing my integrity. And at some point, we have to conclude that enough is enough. I believe that point is now. I have concluded that the problem starts at the top, and I believe that is not going to change. And that's means that it is for those of us in a position who have responsibility to make that change.
Before Boris became Prime Minister, we'd lost our majority under Mrs May. Parliament was overturning the will of the British people in the referendum.
Why?
Be very careful about bringing down a Prime Minister who won a very personal mandate from the British people in 2019.
So that was Northern Ireland Minister Conor Burns, who had a stark warning for Tory rebels trying to undemocratically oust the Prime Minister who won such a personal mandate. I think he's right. You know, Boris had an 80-seat majority to deliver Brexit, which he did. But if he's forced out, our freedom from EU shackles could be under serious threat, especially when you consider Remoaners like Jeremy Hunt and Tom Tugendhat could well replace him inside number 10 if he goes, or worse, a Labour SNP Lib Dem coalition of chaos. Brendan O'Neill, we could be in for a real battle for Brexit here, couldn't we?
Absolutely, and it is absolutely essential that the next Prime Minister is a Brexiteer. There is no question about that at all in my mind. It's really, really important. And I think the thing to bear in mind is if Boris goes and he is replaced, even temporarily, by a Remainer Conservative leader, that will essentially be a coup. That will be a coup where the person voted in by 14 million people to get Brexit done could potentially be replaced by a Tory leader who wants essentially to undo Brexit or to weaken Brexit. That would be undemocratic, and we have to be incredibly careful to guard against that kind of scenario. I think Boris has made lots of mistakes, and I'm sure lots of the 14 million people who voted for him are disappointed. But I think Conor Burns makes a very strong point that the Tory rebels need to be very careful about ousting someone who was elected so enthusiastically by the demos in this country.
Brendan O'Neill, is that actually the politicians are very dishonest when it comes to their true feelings about Brexit, but we have seen some Remoaners reveal their true intentions. So, for example, in my digest, I quoted Michael Heseltine, who says the cancer at the heart of this dilemma is Brexit. If Boris goes, Brexit goes. Then you've got Andrew Adonis, chair of the European movement, who says that actually Boris going is an opportunity to, quote, reopen the conversation about our relationship with Europe. So I do not believe the likes of Starmer when he says that Remoaners have given up on overturning Brexit. In fact, I think they see Boris going as an opportunity to do just that.
Absolutely. I have no doubt about that in my mind at all. I think lots of people are openly saying if Boris goes, Brexit goes. Other people are definitely thinking that. And that's what a lot of them want. They think that Boris single-handedly represents Brexit, and if he's weakened, then Brexit can be weakened. They forget about the 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit, which was the largest democratic bloc in the history of this country, and they annoy those people at their peril. And, we know for a fact that there are significant sections of the political class and the media class who would like to overturn Brexit, who think we were stupid idiots to vote for it and would like to put us back in our place. And that's one of the reasons I'm worried about what comes after Boris. There may come a point when he just has to go. That's a decision he will have to make for himself in the coming days or weeks. But what comes next? That's the question. It's got to be something that reflects public opinion, reflects the 2016 vote, and is not just another Remoaner coup by people who want to betray the electorate.
Well, I know, Brendan, but the problem is that's very unlikely, I think, if Boris goes, because remember, it means the blob has won, the Remoaner elite have won, the political establishment have won. And that's why I think it's so important, personally, that Boris doesn't give up without a fight.
Yeah, and I think actually what he's doing over the past 24 hours, I can't work out if it is absolutely crazy or genius, because he's really he's sticking to his guns. Yeah. He's refusing to leave. He's sacking people now who say that he must resign. I think it's possible that sections of the public could admire that fighting spirit and see that it actually could be a positive sign about what Boris represents.
Indeed. Brendan O'Neill, fascinating analysis as ever. Thank you so much. Coming up, if the worst does happen and Boris succumbs to the MSM-fuelled Westminster witch hunt, who is the best person to replace him? Well, I'll go through the runners and riders with my superstar panel and our media buzz at 10. But first, as Boris weighs up his next move, is there a way to save his premiership? Anne Widdecombe, who knows a little something about the internal politics of the Tories. She's a former Tory minister, of course. She'll reveal her verdict next.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Don't miss the Prime Minister's father, Stanley Johnson, coming up next. But first, his son Boris reckons he'll still be a number 10 after the drama of this week has concluded. Here's what he said about his intentions to stick around in a grilling by the Liaison Committee, very badly timed for him, earlier today.
Prime Minister, just following on from that, you've had more resignations since any Prime Minister since 1932. Michael Gove has told you to go. The charade's up, the game's up, really. Will you be Prime Minister tomorrow?
Of course, Mr McNeill.
Despite the pressure he's facing from a slew of government resignations, now totalling 42, it'll be difficult to force Boris out after the 1922 committee today pulled back from a threatened rule change that would allow another confidence vote to take place. One woman who knows a thing or two about the inner politics of the party is our Anne Widdecombe, who left the Tories for Nigel Farage's Brexit party in 2019 in what she called a, quote, very loud warning shot. So, Anne Widdecombe, huge amount going on tonight. Let me get your reaction first to this breaking news that Michael Gove has been sacked as Levelling Up Secretary because he called for Boris Johnson to go as PM earlier today.
Well, Michael Gove has a record of treachery. He stabbed Boris in the back and gave us Theresa May as a result. Boris forgave all of that, brought him back into the cabinet. Now he's offered it again and openly deserting the Prime Minister. So I think the Prime Minister reaction is correct. Now, let me say this. I am not, as you well know, a total fan of Boris. I strongly disapprove of the Northern Ireland deal. I strongly disapprove of how he treated the Afghan interpreters, which is to say he just forgot about them. But nevertheless, what I don't believe is, I don't believe that he is a serial liar. I think he's a serial blunderer. It's Boris and Blunderland, quite honestly, the whole time. And what happens is, he's got nobody in Downing Street to say, keep quiet, Prime Minister, until we've worked out exactly what the background to this is, and then we can make a statement. He says things, then, like most of us, he realises that perhaps, there was a qualification he should have made, so he makes it, and then he makes another one. Whereas, if he'd stopped, if there was somebody there who said, shut up, Prime Minister, while we sort this out, if he stopped, then the first statement he made would be the accurate one. Now, he's not going to change. I know Boris well. He's completely chaotic. That is the point to be remembered. And as long as he's got somebody there with a grip, as he had when he was Mayor of London, as he had at the start with Dominic Cummings, as long as he's got somebody there with a grip, it's okay. But just leave him alone. And, it's what Anton used to say to me during Strictly Come Dancing. He used to say, the problem is, once I let go of you, I never know what's going to happen by the time we come back.
What a great analogy, Anne. So, look, what's going to happen, though? What's going to happen? Because there's all of these resignations and Boris is staying put in number 10, saying he's not going anywhere. And he's sort of called the bluff of the 1922 committee, who decided not to change the rules earlier today.
Well, he's actually showing the determination that is the old Boris, and which we haven't seen much of. But he's got to do... there's one big reason why I don't want him to go. It's not as I say that I'm a mad fan of Boris, I'm not. But the one big reason I don't want him to go is the country's heading for a recession. You've got a massive cost of living crisis. There's a war in Ukraine, and he's playing a very big part on the world stage. There's a war in Ukraine. There are many things to be sorted out, not least Northern Ireland. And this is not the time to say to the country, and mind the party, to say to the country, we're going to plunge you into weeks and probably months of prolonged Tory infighting while we have this leadership election. This is not the moment. You need stability. But in order to get that stability, you need somebody also giving Boris stability. And at the moment, there's nobody there doing that. Nobody.
Is there enough talent within the Tory backbenchers, Anne, who can be promoted into these ministerial roles? We're now looking for a levelling up secretary, for example.
Yeah, I think so, because, don't forget, he's got a huge majority. He's got a very large number of people there. And he's filled the main posts. He filled the cabinet posts. So I think, yes, that is possible. But I do say, and I can't say it often enough, unless he can do very quickly, it's not weeks, he hasn't got weeks, unless he can within the next few days make an appointment in Downing Street and say this person will get grip and will eliminate chaos. That's what I want to see in Downing Street, a chaos eliminator. If he can do that, then I think he's got half a chance. But at the moment, he's hanging by a thread, and we all know it, and he knows it.
Well, Samantha Cohen has been promoted to replace Steve Barclay, sort of running the show at number 10 Downing Street. She used to run the royal operations. By all accounts, not someone who we know in the public, but by all accounts, a good behind-the-scenes figure. Maybe she's the woman to do it, Anne.
Maybe. But whatever happens, that grip has got to become manifest very, very soon.
Yeah.
Very soon indeed.
He's got a week, doesn't he? He's got a week, maybe a day.
There's no obvious leader in waiting, and the Tories are just poised to lose the next election if they go on like this.
I'm with you there. Anne Widdecombe, thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as a seismic day for the government closes out, Boris Johnson is clinging on to his premiership and vowing he won't be ousted from number 10.
I look at the pressures that people are under and the need for government to focus on their priorities, which is what we are doing. I look at the biggest war in Europe for 80 years, and I cannot for the life of me see how it is responsible just to walk away from that.
As Westminster and the nation wait to see what Boris will do next, I'll speak to the man who knows him best, his father and former MEP Stanley Johnson, for an insight into what's going through the PM's mind as some of his colleagues desert him. That's at 10:20. I still think he's the best man for the job, but with his position looking increasingly perilous, who could replace Boris as Tory leader and PM? I'll take a look at the runners and riders next with my superstar panel. The Daily Mail star columnist Amanda Platel, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer's smelt blood in the water and used the opportunity to call for a general election.
No longer a case about swapping the person at the top. Isn't it clear? The only way the country can get the fresh start it deserves is by getting rid of the lot of them.
So, with a Labour government a greater possibility than ever, should we fear Tony Blair forcing his way back into a position of power? You know my thoughts on this. And columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle will issue a word of warning. He's uncancelled at 10:40. Plus, should Boris just face the music and resign in order to avoid bringing the Tory party down with him, to echo the warning of his former Brexit ally, Lord Frost? Well, that's not my opinion, but I'll find out what my panel will think in the media buzz at 10:30. Plus, we'll find out how Fleet Street have covered what could be an epic downfall as the newspaper front pages roll into, and Greatest Britain Union Jackass will close the show as per at 10:50. But to wrap up another busy political night, here's the latest headlines from Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dan. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. Boris Johnson has sacked Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove. It comes after the Prime Minister vowed to continue despite several members of his cabinet urging him to step down. Now, for those of you watching on television, we're now seeing live pictures from Downing Street. And as the Prime Minister settles in for the evening, at least 42 MPs have now resigned from government positions within the last 42 hours. The Times reporting that Home Secretary Priti Patel is among those urging Boris Johnson to go. Other senior figures include Transport Secretary Grant Shapps and Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis. However, Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries has expressed her support, along with Brexit Opportunities Minister Jacob Rees-Mogg. The resignations follow concerns over Boris Johnson's handling of a sexual misconduct scandal involving former Deputy Chief Whip Chris Pincher. Mr Johnson has voiced his regrets that Mr Pincher continued to hold office, saying he should have realised he wouldn't change. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has accused the Prime Minister of enabling a sexual predator.
I started this session with a quote from the young victim in all this, how he froze when he was attacked. When I was prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex, it's about power. And the power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible.
Well, the first cabinet minister to resign last night was former Health Secretary Sajid Javid. He says he quit because he couldn't risk losing his integrity. In his resignation statement in the Commons earlier, Mr Javid said, "Enough is enough."
But I do fear that the reset button can only work so many times. There's only so many times you can turn that machine on and off before you realise that something is fundamentally wrong. Last month, I gave the benefit of doubt one last time. I have concluded that the problem starts at the top, and I believe that is not going to change.
Earlier, at a meeting of the 1922 committee, backbench MPs decided not to change the rules and push for another vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. Instead, the decision's been put on hold until after the group chooses a new executive. That's on Monday. On TV, online and on DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight in our Media Buzz now. Lots of front pages delayed tonight, not surprisingly. I guess they were waiting to see if Boris was still going to be in a job. But we do have the Iron, which leads emphatically with the headline Cabinet Coup and describes how the PM has been humiliated amid his, quote, downfall, but he still refuses to quit. It reports how Boris has told MPs they will have to force him out in a no-confidence vote. The paper tells how the UK is heading for its fourth PM in 6 years, while a Number 10 source describes Sack Bojo ally and old friend Michael Gove as a, quote, snake. No snakes on my superstar panel tonight. Star Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson. Now, breaking tonight, government resignations have now topped 42, but not among them Boris Johnson. That's despite a delegation of cabinet ministers, including the newly appointed Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi, going into number 10 to reportedly tell Boris Johnson to resign. Home Secretary Priti Patel and Transport Secretary Grant Shapps were among them. Patel conveyed to the PM the overwhelming views of the parliamentary party, reports claim. But Boris gave no sign to MPs at the Commons Liaison Committee that he was planning to resign when he was repeatedly pressed on the issue.
Asking me to comment on politics, I think it's important that we get on and deliver on our agenda, and that is what I was elected to do. Now, on the contrary, what we need is stable government, loving each other as Conservatives, getting on with our priorities. That is what we need to do.
I love that admirable optimism and dedication to duty, but despite that, could we be reaching an unsavoury conclusion to this Westminster witch hunt? Maybe. So then the obvious question, one which no one seems to have a sensible answer to, is who the hell would be next? I mean, who actually could replace Boris in number 10? Who can guide the country through multiple once-in-a-generation crises? But before we tackle that crucial question, in light of the PM's brutal sacking of Michael Gove this evening, let's just take a moment to remember the ex-Levelling Up Secretary's previous betrayal of Boris during the 2016 Conservative leadership race.
I worked night and day for it. But I came to realise this week that for all Boris's formidable talents, he was not the right person for that task.
So revenge tonight, Amanda Patel. He's finally got his revenge. I wonder, Amanda, is this the start of a potential Gove leadership campaign? Because he always said, I'm not interested in the job, but we know he is.
He doesn't have a chance of ever becoming leader of the Conservative Party. He's just, I'm afraid he's just slightly weird. Unlike you, Dan, who's great on TV, and my contemporaries here today, not contemporaries because you're much younger, there's just something weird about him. But I'm much more interested in how soon as the Packers come in to take him out of his multi-million-pound grace and favour apartment that he's been living in.
Brilliant.
Will they arrive tomorrow like they do when you get kicked out of number 10? Ministerial car, gone. You know, fab apartment in somewhere like Kensington, gone.
You're evicted, Gove.
Welcome to the real world.
OK, well, Amanda, if you don't think there's a chance for Gove then, and look, I know you're supporting Boris, but we have to be realistic. Look, who do you think could actually do this job?
Look, I am realistic. I still think that there's a slither of hope that Boris can hold on.
No, I agree.
OK, so I want that on record.
Yeah.
And when you look at the other runners and riders, I mean, you've got... I laughed out loud today when Sajid gave his speech, you know, his I'm not a quitter, as he resigned.
What?
They told me I couldn't do maths, but I proved them wrong. They told me this ridiculous diatribe.
So you're not a fan of PM Javid?
Well, I just think with Javid, that was the most blatant and actually quite cringe-worthy pitch for the top job.
Well, especially seeing Boris rescued him from the political wilderness.
Rishi's finished because he's too rich, and, you know, his wife came out with...
Well, he could be back now. He could be back now on the basis he's quit.
Do you think?
No.
The bookers are putting in number 2 to Penny Mordaunt at the moment.
Oh, Penny's number 1.
Penny's number 1, and she has been for some time.
What do you think about Penny Mordaunt?
Penny, I used to employ Penny back in the old days. She is a great girl.
Could she be Prime Minister?
She is just fantastic, but as one cabinet minister said to me recently when she was being talked up, said she's a great person, got great principles, everything's about her is wonderful, but she's not very quick.
Because Adam, you like Penny Mordaunt.
You didn't let that drop. I think that is like the most damning thing you can say about someone, which means effectively you're just not bright enough.
I knew what you were saying. I knew about that little dig. God, I'm glad I never used to work for you. I can only imagine what you'd be saying about my speed. Adam, you like her, though. She's a Brexiteer.
She's a Brexiteer. So, you know, I think if the Conservative Party try to install or do install a Remainer MP, there's big trouble ahead.
Even if it's Liz Truss, who has very much converted to the cause of Brexit.
A lot of people do not believe, you know, that she's fully converted.
So it needs to be someone who actually voted to leave the European Union.
Look, Penny Mordaunt is the candidate that least worries me. I'm not blown away by anyone, but she's I'm not as scared as her being PM.
Anyone else tickle your fancy?
Not really, if I'm honest. Along that list, I would like, obviously, a Steve Baker, Mark Harper, or even Sir Graham, Bradley. But it's
Lord Frost?
Not in the running at the moment.
No, but...
What about Tom Tugendhat, who today posted pictures of himself putting his daughter's hair in a ponytail, saying, "Darling, sorry, I can't do it as well as Mummy."
Oh, cringe.
I mean, are they all
Next, you're going to be saying, what about Jeremy Hunt? Nigel Nelson, you're obviously political editor for Sunday Mirror. You're very tapped into this. Who are the Tory MPs rallying behind?
Well, it depends where you're looking. There's Liz Truss, and Liz Truss is a Margaret Thatcher free marketeer, very popular with the membership. If she got to the final two, it's quite likely that she would win.
If she'd voted to leave, I actually think she'd be a shoo-in.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think, look, guys, Brexit is over.
No, it ain't.
Brexit is done.
No,
Brexit is no longer,
it's not even close
an
to
argument.
over.
It's embedded in the Tory
Go and ask the
DNA.
Red Wall that. It's not done in many people's
Well, it's not done in Northern Ireland, but Brexit as an issue is over.
It's not.
It's not even close to over. Amanda, anyone else who you think would potentially get your support?
I just kind of despair when I look at them. I mean, when we were going through all of this, I mean, Zahawi has really great credentials.
Yes, he does.
And he's very supported by the centre-right of the party in so many ways.
That's true. He would get the right-wing vote and the old Boris loyalist vote.
Centre-right. Don't just ram me to the right.
Rightish vote. Then.
He's not trusted by a lot of anti-restriction campaigners.
Yeah, but also the fact
including myself.
We're not talking about Priti Patel.
No,
we're not.
Funnily enough, we're not.
No.
Well, she's very popular with the base.
The very low.
No, the Priti Patel, no way. I mean, someone like I think we will be surprised when we actually see the slate. I do think someone like Jeremy Hunt will run again.
No chance.
I also think, by the way, Matt Hancock will run again too.
Oh, look.
I think he will. I mean, I don't think he's got
Surely Jeremy Hunt knows.
But I think he'll run again.
It's not liked.
I hope Jeremy Hunt looks at those polls from Conservative Home and realises that his chances of leading the Conservative Party are over. Now, look, we all know in the world of the liberal elite, racism only works one way. And today we had even more proof. Quote, comedian Nish Kumar, who was axed by the BBC over claims of lefty bias, sees the current political drama as an opportunity to beat Boris when he's down and also stir up some racial tension on Twitter. So taking to the social media site on the back of Cabinet resignations by the Chancellor and Health Secretary, Kumar wrote, balancing out the fact that I can't stand Javid or Sunak with the fact I love to see a rich white man brought down by Asians. Needless to say, if the ethnicities were reversed in that scenario, all hell would have broken loose. Well, GBNews' own Father Calvin Robinson couldn't believe the rank hypocrisy and he called Nish out, tweeting, reported for racism. Well, of course, Calvin's usually on our Superstar panel. He took the week off yesterday, but we did touch base with the free speech champion and he explained why he refused to let this pass by as yet another example of a harmless lefty joke. Look.
He's talking about whites, he's talking about Asians. It's clearly incendiary. However, I reported it to Twitter and nothing has happened. Why? Because he's woke. Nothing to do with him being a comedian. I didn't realise he was a comedian. I've never heard him say anything funny, but apparently this might have been a joke. If someone on the right was making this joke, or it was the other way around, it would have been seen as entirely different. Just flip the colours around and then see if it still works. If it sounds incredibly racist, then it's racist either way, because it's all or nothing. It works both ways, or it doesn't work at all.
Good point, Reverend. Just another instance of the craven left exposing themselves as intolerant and actually not funny. Nigel Nelson, Adam Brooks, Amanda Patel, do stand by, because coming up, I don't think his departure will be good for anyone except maybe Slippery Starmer and Labour. But should Boris just face the music and resign in order to avoid bringing the Tory party down with him? That's to echo the warning of his former Brexit ally, Lord Frost. We'll debate as the Superstar panel return at 10:30. But next, Westminster and the world are on tenterhooks wondering what Boris will do next as he devised those calls to resign. Well, the man who knows him best, his father, former MEP Stanley Johnson, gives us an insight into what the PM is thinking. Stanley Johnson live in the studio in just 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Welcome back. It's another seismic night in British politics as Boris Johnson fights to stay in power amid a treacherous and short-sighted Tory revolt that has seen 42 government resignations so far. I'm delighted to be joined by the PM's father, a regular superstar panellist on this show, Stanley Johnson, live in the studio now for an exclusive interview. So, Stanley, so much to unpack here. First, I want to get your reaction to this breaking news tonight that Boris has sacked Michael Gove after he told your son to resign earlier today.
Well, as I think of one of your panellists earlier today said, revenge is a dish best served cold. And I can remember that moment in 2016 when...
We all can, yeah.
Gove wielded the knife. I remember saying on telly somewhere, et tu Gove, et tu Gove. Well, for me, it's the most extraordinary day because I'm looking at the Conservative Party, and I've been a Conservative most of my life, and it's tearing itself apart in a fit of madness, complete and utter madness. And you say to yourself, where will it end? I mean, where will it end? And it can only end, I think, unless the Conservative Party comes to its senses and realises it's going down the wrong route, it'll end in a fight, and the fight will be done.
Well, the fight back has started tonight, as far as I can tell, Stanley, because Boris is quite rightly saying, I was conclusively backed in this confidence vote just 3 weeks ago. I'm not going anywhere.
He's right. So I would put some money on it, and that is that if there is a fight, and by the way, it's not Boris who is choosing to fight, it's the parliamentary party which is concerned. But if there is a fight, he will go down to the wire. And I think that people in the party tonight need to consider very, very carefully indeed, do they really want to go down this route? Do they really want to force a second vote? Do they want to do that? Are they sure they want to do that? Because, for my money, actually, justice. It's a matter of justice. Justice is on Boris's side. It just has to be. And I'm not here, as you can imagine, to misquote Mark Antony. you know, to bury. I'm here to praise Boris, not to bury him. But I think if you look at it, if you look at the facts, the achievements have been extraordinary. There have been Brexit, whatever you think, Brexit was done. There's been COVID, whatever you think of that, COVID was done. There's Ukraine, and for my money, you know, there's been the environment, biodiversity, climate change. These are big issues. And what are we doing? We're derailing the man who has led all that for what appears to be completely inconsequential reasons. I mean, if you actually look at the facts, the only fact is that, yes, for 20 minutes, Boris had a drink on what happened to be his birthday. As far as I know, he has not been proved to have deliberately misled Parliament. That is not. That might be a resigning matter, but that hasn't happened. So we have a whole lot of other sort of hearsay stuff, which is basically nonsense, real nonsense. I think the parliamentary body, needs to pull itself together.
Do you agree with me that this has been a Westminster witch hunt, Stanley
I love
Johnson?
that phrase. You use that in your introduction. Westminster witch hunt. I would have used another phrase, because I'm a bit of an environmentalist. I would have said feeding frenzy. I look at this and I think, my God, you look at, and you played a clip of Andrew Marr. Andrew Marr saying, wow, he's got to go now. Yeah. Well, I think you made the point that, you know, he's meant to still be an objective reporter and so on and so forth. This has been a feeding frenzy, and the sooner they snap out of it, the more chance there is of the Tories surviving as a political party.
Well, of course, because Boris Johnson has never lost an election, and there's a lot of people within the Tory base, Stanley, I speak to them on a daily basis, who say, if the party forces Boris Johnson out in this way, I will never vote again. I mean, you've got to remember, there are a lot of people on those red wall seats who simply didn't used to vote at all before Brexit, and it was Boris that got them to the ballot box.
I agree with you completely, and I'm not a constitutionalist at all. But nonetheless, I have some sympathy with Boris's view that why should he, the duly elected Prime Minister, you pointed out with a large majority, 80 majority, why should he, as it were, resign on the basis of some truly inconsequential matters as a result of some internal manoeuvring in the Tory party? I mean, I think that there will be people out there in the country, and let's hope they're the kind of people who watch your programme, who will say, come on, folks, is this just? Are we seeing real justice here? And I think not. And by the way, what I will not accept, and I say that obviously as the father, I hate the language which people are using. They toss off these words: integrity, probity, moral compass, lying. It's all. I wouldn't dream of using that sort of words to people unless I had solid grounds for saying so.
Obviously, there have been missteps along the way. We acknowledge that. But I think Boris owned up to them, didn't he? He apologised for the Chris Pincher scandal, for example, because in reality, Stanley, I think you can probably admit it wasn't a wise idea to promote that bloke, given his track record.
Yeah, but you've got to say to yourself, I mean, I do from time to time, without giving any secrets away, go to number 10 Downing. I do see the intense pressure which they... I mean, I say, if I go, I say, for heaven's sake, don't spend more than 5 minutes with me. You've got many, many other things to do. Yeah. Well, the idea that the Prime Minister can absorb and take in and remember 3 years on every single briefing which he is given. Now, take the Pincher thing. I actually did read McDonald's letter. There's no evidence there that McDonald, in person, actually went to the Prime Minister and said, these are the results of the investigation. You really take it very, very seriously. I don't see that in the McDonald letter. I see that the Prime Minister was informed. OK, they may have been at the top of a red box, may have been at the bottom of a red box. So let's be realistic here. There's no reason why the Prime Minister should know whose hand is in whose crotch. Let's face it.
How disloyal were Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid yesterday? Because if you look at both men, they owe their entire political careers to Boris Johnson, and now they've tried to end his.
No, I'm not going to get down there. Having started my tirade,
you respect them.
Having started my tirade saying the Tory party has to stop tearing itself apart, I'm not going to start.
You won't criticise others.
Slagging off Rishi Sunak or Sajid Javid. I'm not going to do that. But I think they really will have to realise. I have a sort of sense that the 22 committee might just have realised this evening that they're going down a very, very dangerous road. And where they
because they have decided not to change.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just think maybe a little warning light came upon them that the fight, and Boris will make it a fight, the fight may end up by being more painful than they realise.
So is there anything, Stanley, that could make Boris resign?
I don't see it. I absolutely don't see it. If he obviously lost a general election, he would resign as Prime Minister. I suspect he'd resign as leader of the Tory party, because that's what leaders who lose elections do. But I can't see anything before that.
And he's still got a lot of supporters too. I mean, if you look at the cabinet big beast, I mean, yes, Sunak and Javid went, but yesterday there was an expectation that this was going to see the dam burst open. But in fact, Liz Truss still in post, Ben Wallace still in post, Priti Patel still in post. I mean, these are serious figures.
I sit here this evening, and I'm honestly really thrilled to be invited on your programme this evening. Last time I was invited on was to promote one of my novels. Well, now I can promote something really serious, which is this wonderful Conservative Party, which we have, and which thinks that by picking on this gentleman, who's probably more talented than we've had for a very long time in this position, by picking on him, they will then find someone to replace him who will be able to do what he has done. And, of course, I am party free. I mean, I don't deny it. I mean, I am, tonight, I'm still the father of the Prime Minister. Even if he ceases to be the Prime Minister, I'll still be his father, so I'll still be taking his side. But this is a very, very crucial moment, and I think your programme tonight may be when the tide begins to turn back into a sense of reality.
The fight back has begun. Well, look, Stanley, stand by, because we're going to have plenty more from you in just a moment. But also coming up in Uncancelled at 10:40, with a Labour government a greater possibility than ever as a result of this treatment of Boris, should we fear Tony Blair forcing his way back into a position of power? I've shared my thoughts on this already this week, and tonight, columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddle issues his own word of warning. You're not going to want to miss that. But first, I still think he's the best man for the job, and I'm sure Stanley here agrees, but the PM's former Brexit ally, Lord Frost, worries he could bring the entire Tory party down with him if he doesn't resign. What do my superstar panel think? We'll bring them into the conversation straight after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. Lots of front pages have just been delivered, so let's get straight to them. The Metro pokes fun at the PM's Brexit triumphs by leading Get Exit Done Boris, citing his, quote, record-breaking rebellion with 42 resignations. The Daily Mirror have been swapping notes with the Metro as it runs the same Brexit-alluding headline, accompanied by a picture of the PM looking a little bit forlorn in Downing Street earlier. The Guardian revels in the PM's plight by calling Boris desperate and deluded, reporting on how he is locked in an unprecedented standoff with his own cabinet. Exactly what you'd expect, by the way, from The Guardian. OK, let me bring in tonight's superstar panel. Star Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, Sunday Mirror political editor Nigel Nelson, and, of course, Stanley Johnson stays with us. Now, even Boris Johnson's most loyal allies have been thrown in the towel today, including names that have backed him to the hilt in recent weeks. The likes of Red Wall MPs Lee Anderson, Tom Hunt, and the biggest Boris backer of them all, Jonathan Gullis, called for the PM to resign in a wave of damning critiques. Boris' long-time sort of frenemy, I guess you'd say, Michael Gove, who already has form for doing the dirty on the PM, also pressured him to quit earlier this morning. He has, of course, now been sacked. Here's how just a few of the Prime Minister's own MPs let rip at their boss earlier today in a series of very, I would say, unbecoming public scoldings.
This is a question for me of morality and integrity in that place over there. I can't let this pass.
But if the Prime Minister constantly tries to deflect from the issue, nothing left for him to do other than to take responsibility and resign.
It would appear that the Prime Minister himself is the last one to realise that the game is up, the party is over.
Today I ask him to do the honourable thing, and before, in his own words, it does become impossible for government to do its job.
Of course, perhaps you might say Boris's most important ally of all, Lord David Frost, the PM's right-hand man, and the bloke who helped negotiate our Brexit deal, said the PM risks taking the Conservative Party down with him if he doesn't quit. He wrote in the Daily Telegraph today, I have to conclude that the repetition of the same mistakes and the refusal to acknowledge the need for change means that this Prime Minister is never going to get better. Stanley Johnson, your reaction to Lord Frost and those other Boris loyalists?
Well, I think I'd like to be called a Boris loyalist myself. I'm not sure. I like this, labelling of Frost as the leading Boris loyalist. I've been a Boris loyalist since June the 19th, 1964, I can tell you. And I intend to stay that way, even if he ceases to be Prime Minister. Frost did a good job, no doubt about it, but I think that what we need to see now is the Parliamentary Party pulling back from the brink and realising they push this one as far as they can and to recognise the value of what they have.
And Amanda Patel, do you have anything you want to ask Stanley?
I'm not allowed to look at him. Stanley, can I look at you kind of sideways? First, I'd like to ask the viewers, apart from David Davis, could you name a single one of those Boris bashers? I mean, the number of people who are resigning, even I, who've been in politics all my life, I wouldn't know them if I bumped into them in Tesco's. And it just seems like, as we've discussed, a feeding frenzy. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, Stanley, what is it about Boris? Most PMs at this stage would probably have caved. What is it about him?
Shall I tell you what it is, Amanda? I think it is professional jealousy. A lot of these people in the media started off as journalists.
You're not allowed to look at me. You have to look straight ahead.
Started off as journalists. Boris started off as a journalist, and he went on to lower things, higher things, whatever he said. And I honestly suspect that some of it is just, old-fashioned envy, and let's bring him down when we can. It's a bit of it there. And I think the other thing is really, you actually have to recognise that the guy is probably in a different league from a lot of the competition. So
Adam Brooks?
There's the left-wing stuff.
I'd like to ask Stanley, have you spoken to Boris today?
Well, I don't go into when or where I speak to any of my children, so I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that question. But no doubt he is watching this programme now, and so he'll probably know what I'm thinking.
And does he have the mental strength to see this through?
You bet. That is one thing he is absolutely. I remember when he played the Eton Wall game. The Eton Wall game, is a pretty tough game. And there's a motto. The motto is, give as good as you get. Give more than you get. In fact, as I recall, the motto of the people who played the Eton Wall game was an eye for a tooth. And that's one.
So will we see some more sackings, do you think?
I think we will see battle launched. If the party wants a fight, there'll be a fight, and that's what we'll see. But he's not going to walk away from this one.
Nigel Nelson.
Yeah, Stanley, I've been in the House of Commons all day, and it's been, obviously, Tory MPs are scenting blood in the water, as I'm sure you've noticed. If your son does go as Prime Minister, what do you think he'd do next?
He can do a lot of things, and I've no doubt that, a couple of people like the Daily Telegraph might say, I say, Boris, you've been a star correspondent for the last 50 years. Would you like a little column? I suspect that what he may very well do is go back to painting. He is a brilliant painter, absolutely brilliant. And I'd like to see, 10 years down the line, his mother, by the way, was a very fine painter, so 10 years down the line, I would like to see a retrospective at the Institute of Contemporary Art.
Stanley, you shouldn't be talking about what he's going to do after, when we're here talking about how we can help for him to stay in the job. I think he should only be thinking about doing paintballing. With all these people in the cabinet. That's
paintballing Michael Gove.
In with a gun. Now, he's already gone. He's packing.
This is an incredibly serious moment, isn't it?
Well, democracy is at stake.
It's democracy. It is unbelievable that, a bunch of MPs, think that at this moment they can, as it were, unseat the Prime Minister for what need to me to be proven offences. And I don't think there's been any proof of any of this.
I mean, Nigel Nelson, why is that OK? Justify to Stanley why you think that's OK.
OK. The one thing that I've disagreed with a number of people tonight on is the idea this is not democratic. MPs are not delegates, they're representatives. They're elected to use their judgment. And that is what they've chosen to do. So as a result, this is a democratic process, however much people don't like it.
And however much the British public voted Boris in.
Stanley?
Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing is that they didn't vote. We haven't got a presidential system in this country. What the British public voted for at the last election, well, by a majority anyway, was for the Conservative Party and for Conservative MPs. And it's Conservative MPs who are now using their judgment at the moment.
Well, I suppose technically speaking, you could be right about that. I mean, technically speaking, the leader of the party, and if the party then wins the majority, or if it wins a majority in coalition with another party, the leader becomes the Prime Minister. So technically, I suppose you're right that there is, as it were, a democratic element. That said, I think that at a time when Boris got, as I recall, it was something like, was it 385 85 MPs?
About 360.
What's that?
About 360.
360, and a majority of 80. I think there might be people out there in the country who would say, well, we would quite like to have had a say in who the next Prime Minister is.
OK, look, I'm just going to interrupt because we have some more breaking news. Another ministerial resignation. The Welsh Secretary, Simon Hart, has just posted his letter of resignation to the Prime Minister. I'll read it for you. He says, "Dear Prime Minister, I had desperately hoped that I could avoid writing this letter, but alas, there seems no other option left but to step down from my role as Secretary of State for Wales. You will be remembered as a Prime Minister with energy, vision, determination and humour. There was never a dull moment as a Minister in your government, and I will be forever grateful to have been given the chance to be part of it. I have never been a massive fan fan of ministerial resignations being the best means of forcing change. Colleagues have done their utmost in private and public to help you turn the ship around, but it is with sadness that I feel we have passed the point where this is possible. So Amanda Patel, not exactly one of the big beasts in the cabinet, but still a relatively significant figure. What do you make of this resignation from Simon Hart?
I felt quite betrayed, actually, because I traipsed down to Wales to do a fundraiser for him. Never again, Simon.
Stanley Johnson, your reaction to that resignation from the Welsh Secretary, Simon Hart?
Simon was a good countryside guy at a time when people were desperately trying to ban hunting. You know, Simon led the Countryside Alliance, as I recall. Looking back, I'm not 100% sure that that was an activity which got them the acclaim it got, or deserved the acclaim it got.
He's a nice guy, Simon.
Yeah, that's the point. I don't want to.
I'm just disappointed.
I don't want to slag off. Actually, truth to tell, I said earlier, this is not the moment for slagging anybody off. No. That's the trouble. All of those people, including the media, including these, they use these words. I said it before. I can't think of a time when I'd call someone a liar. I mean, that would be a most amazing thing. In the old days, you'd take people outside and shoot each other if they called you a liar. But people toss these words around.
No, Stanley Johnson, I've heard you loud and clear. So good to have you. I know we're going to have you back on the Superstar panel very soon. Stanley Johnson, do keep in touch. The Superstar panel will be back very soon. But finally, if you didn't already know, the mainstream media is absolutely loving Boris Johnson's potential demise. Well, you do know now. Exposing the BBC's, quite frankly, embarrassing loathing of the PM, Minister Maria Caulfield called out a journalist from Radio 4's Today programme who practically begged her to resign live on air last night. So in a message to Maria, who is the MP for Lewes, the BBC producer said, "I appreciate you may well be staying in place, but if you were planning on resigning, we'd be very keen to get an interview with you. A resignation live on air would be even better. Please do let me know in confidence if that's something you would consider." Well, fuming Maria shared the outrageous message on Twitter before blasting the BBC for playing, quote, one big game. After 7 months of trying to topple the PM, the Beeb are now circling like vultures for their final kill shot. But I'd say, what did you expect from the Boris-bashing corporation? Now, coming up, the key figures of the Westminster bloodbath are unsurprisingly in the running to be crowned today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. I'll name my winner soon. But first, with a Labour government looking closer than ever thanks to the push to oust Boris, will this open up the possibility of Tony Blair calling the shots once again? Rod Liddell standing by. He's uncancelled next. First, though, a taster of what's coming up tomorrow.
As the battle to bring down Boris succeeds, plunging the Tories into chaos and pushing the Prime Minister to the brink, political heavyweights and the most trusted analysts in the country will investigate the fallout of this unprecedented downfall and ask, what on earth comes next? It's a Westminster in Crisis edition of Dan Wootton Tonight, with no spin, no bias and no censorship. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, smelling blood in the water, Keir Starmer used today's PMQs to push for a general election with the hope of finally returning the Labour Party to power. Down but not out, Boris hit back at the influential liaison committee, saying general elections are not the way to solve all problems.
He's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible. So it's no longer a case about swapping the person at the top. Isn't it clear? The only way the country can get the fresh start it deserves is by getting rid of the lot of them.
I don't think that anybody in this country wants politicians to be engaged in electioneering now or in the immediate future. And I think that we need to get on with serving our voters and dealing with the issues that they care about.
What makes the prospect of a Ramona Labour-led government even more terrifying is that behind the scenes, pulling all the strings, one Tony Blair, who will never give up on the idea of reversing Brexit. Well, someone else who sees the very real threat of Blair once again wielding influence on the future of Britain is Rod Liddle, who joins me now. But Rod, just before we talk about Tony Blair, obviously it is a seismic night of breaking news. Boris Johnson refusing to go. He has sacked Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary. In the last few minutes, we've had the resignation of the Welsh Secretary, Simon Hart. Rod, what do you make of it all?
I'm afraid it's all beginning to look a little Ceausescu, in that everybody wants him gone. But
just hope no one's going to be shot.
Yeah, well, indeed. If I could disagree with you over one thing, though, I don't doubt for a single second the BBC has been bashing Boris. I mean, it does that. It does loathe Boris. I don't doubt that. But I could also tell you that if I was a junior producer on the Today programme, I would have done exactly what that producer did and tried to get someone to resign on air. And that was whether they were a Conservative or a Labour or a Liberal Democrat, because that is good journalism. That is what audiences want to hear. That is drama, and it tells the story very, very well. I don't doubt that the Today programme, which has gone sadly downhill since I stopped editing it, Dan, as you well know.
No, fair point. And look, I don't ever want to get a young producer in trouble either, but I think it's indicative of what's going on at the BBC, Rod. I played a clip earlier of the show of Joe Coburn on the Daily Politics today, literally shouting, Boris is finished. I mean, you know, we know what they're like.
Yeah. Yes, indeed we do.
Fair point, well made.
I don't know what happens now. I mean, I assume that he does continue to shout Ceausescu like Klingon while everybody circles behind him, and eventually they will get rid of him. Because I have been saying for a long time now that Boris should go. I know you don't agree with that, Dan.
Yes, but I don't.
He cannot win an election. And that was the point of Boris Johnson, to win an election. And his standing in the polls is so low and irrecoverable. And when you talk to people up here in the red wall seats, they have had enough of him. The only hope for the Conservative Party is to elect a leader who can reconnect with those red wall voters. Have they got one? Not with any of the favourites.
Well, no, and that's my point, Rod. I think to overthrow a prime minister elected with a majority like that, you better have a bloody good replacement waiting in the wings who you can guarantee will be as much of an electoral success. And I just don't believe that the Tories have that.
No, I think that's possibly right. Although leaders sometimes grow into the job. Certainly, John Major did, of course, who pulled round a terrible deficit
and Thatcher,
and won the election. There is, I mean, possibly Ben Wallace. I know a lot of people on the side of the party which you would tend towards, and probably which, if I were a Tory, I would be on. Ben Wallace is the one to look at. But there's also, other people. There's Priti Patel. There's Michael Gove, who once told me he was a Blue Labour figure. Not Michael
Gove, please. Not Michael Gove. But Rod, you wrote about something at the weekend in the Sunday Times, which I think is really important, and it's this horrifying prospect of the return of Tony Blair.
Yeah, I don't think he will return. He is trying to. I mean, he had his Future of Britain conference at the weekend. Just before the weekend, at the end of last week, where there were various munchkins in attendance, the voices of death past, Patricia Hewitt, Andrew Adonis, people like that, people who were part of the Blair project. What I think people now realise is that Tony Blair is rather the architect of all the mess we are currently in, whether it be the neoliberal economic mess, whether it be the mess over immigration, which it was, of course, Tony Blair who opened the doors to mass immigration, and our standing as a nation in the community of nations, given our illegal invasion of Iraq. These were absolutely disastrous acts, which no prime minister, certainly since the 1920s that I can think of, has come anywhere close. The closest would be Suez and Anthony Eden. No one has come close to wreaking the sort of havoc on our country that Tony Blair wreaked, even if in the early days a few good things were done by New Labour. Nonetheless, the lasting impression is one of absolute chaos. And it was chaos done for ideological reasons. It is that ideology which still permeates government, which is neoliberal, and which is kind of on foreign affairs believes that everybody wants the same thing and could be forced into accepting it at the point of a rifle, and at home a continuation of the same neoliberal economic policies which laid waste to the north of England under Margaret Thatcher between 1979 and 1990. So I think we now grasp that Tony Blair was, quotes, a bad thing. And I don't think there's any way back for him. But undoubtedly, he wants to come back, and one of the top of his agenda, of course, is Brexit.
I'm just going to interrupt our discussion about Blair, though, to tell you we've got another ministerial resignation to finish the show. This is Edward Aga, Health Minister. He says, I believe with regret that it is now the time to consider the future and the big call of how we face the future with integrity. And in that context, I fear that a change is needed in order for our party to continue to deliver on our shared ambitions for our country. Again, Rod, not a cabinet big beast, but obviously he has loyally served as Minister of State for Health since 2019.
I've never heard of him, mate. I'm sorry.
I've interviewed him before. But no, he's certainly not one of the big beasts. So I guess it's just this drip, Rod.
And it'll go on all weekend. And the weekend is a crucial time, I suppose, for Boris if he intends to go on. But I'm sorry to say in front of Stanley, the man's toast. It's over. And it should have been over earlier. It should have been done in a more dignified manner.
Stanley Johnson says the fight back begins tonight, Rod. So we will see. But Rod Little, great analysis as ever. Thank you so much. Time now to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. Amanda Platel, your nominee for Greatest Britain is...
Dan, mine was sarcastically going to be Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, as that they're the best chance that we've got as Conservatives to keep Labour out of power. But I'm changing it to Stanley.
Oh, I love that.
And I just think, Jesus, you know, having a dad like that is a really great thing. Makes me churn up a bit. You know, yo, Stanley, you're my great Brit.
I love that. Absolutely. It was a brilliant defence. Adam Brooks, your Greatest Britain nominee.
Mine is Martin Lewis. He gave a really passionate TV interview today where he really showed that he cares for people during these hard times. And he's reached out to the new Chancellor to even assist him, you know, with the cost of living crisis.
And Nigel Nelson, your Greatest Britain nominee.
Yeah, mine's a double act and probably rather unpopular in this room, but it's Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid for having the guts to potentially end their political careers on a principle.
Well, I'm actually going to go with Amanda because I think Stanley Johnson was brilliant. As he said, the fight back starts tonight. Union jackass time now. Amanda Platel, your nominee.
Sajid Javid, the guy says he's not a quitter after he quit, and with that huge sob story, it's not Britain's Got Talent, mate. It's real government.
Adam Brooks, your Union jackass nominee.
Nish Kumar for his petty and divisive tweet, which a lot of people are describing as racist.
And Nigel Nelson, your Union jackass nominee.
And despite the fight back, it's Boris Johnson for not bowing to the inevitable.
Well, we don't know if it's inevitable now. Do we, Amanda?
We do not.
I mean, come on.
It's not over.
It's not over. And by the way...
I'm afraid it's over.
Can I
Who's
say,
the fat lady? That's what I want to know.
It's not up
Who is the
to
fat lady?
the BBC
That's fattest.
to say that this is over. That is my fundamental point. Do you know what? Lots of choices there, though, because I thought that Nish Kumar tweet was absolutely despicable and clearly racist, and the fact that the bloke is even described as a comedian is weird to me. However, it is the double win for Amanda Platel. Sajid Javid has to be today's Union jackass. How on earth, as Amanda said earlier, how on earth can you give a resignation speech saying, I'm not a quitter, when that's exactly what you're doing? for the second time as well. Well, thank you for your company tonight. Thank you for my fabulous superstar panel on a very busy night of breaking news. Amanda Patel, Adam Brooks, Nigel Nelson. Of course, I'll be back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Just remember, Boris is fighting back. He sacked Michael Gove tonight. It ain't over yet, folks. Headliners is next. See you tomorrow.
Hello again, I'm Stephen Keats with your latest Met Office forecast. And for the next few days, we're looking at an increasing amount of fine, dry, and for quite a lot of us, sunny and increasingly warm weather to come across the UK. A bit cloudy, though, towards the northwest, and that's because here we'll be closest to these Atlantic weather fronts, just toppling around this area of high pressure, which is otherwise maintaining a relatively fine settled period. This cold front, fairly weak feature, not a lot on it, as it comes southwards across central parts of the UK, down towards parts of the south overnight tonight and into the first part of Thursday. A few spots of rain, but many places not really seeing much at all. To its north, we'll see the clouds breaking up a bit, so some clear spells for parts of Scotland, northern England to end the night. Here, just about into single figures in one or two rural spots. Most places, though, it's a fairly warm start to Thursday. Warm but fairly cloudy, though, for the bulk of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Scotland seeing the lion's share of the sunshine through Thursday morning. But as we move on through the day, I think the cloud will tend to break up from the north, and by the afternoon, actually, lots of places we'll be seeing a fair amount of sunshine. Blue skies for many of us, a little bit cloudy though into the northwest. Here a bit cooler, but for many places warmer for Scotland compared to what we'll see through Wednesday. Elsewhere, low 20s, 25, 26 possible in parts of the south. The cloud in the northwest then making inroads across Scotland through Thursday evening. Some patchy rain and drizzle again, mainly for the northwest highlands, a few spots of rain elsewhere, but many places in Scotland away from there staying dry. It's a fairly clear night though for the bulk of England and Wales. And even though we've got the clear skies, the air mass is slowly warming up, so 13 to 16 as minimum temperatures to take us into Friday morning. Then for Friday itself, again, a lot of fine sunny weather on offer again from the word go for parts of central and eastern England, southern England and South Wales too. A bit more cloud the further northwest you go, and this just about capable of producing a few spots of light rain and drizzle for northern west of Scotland, perhaps Northern Ireland too. Another warm one in the southeast. Temperatures here up to 27 degrees and lots of sunshine then to take us through the weekend, particularly in the south. A bit cloudy further north. Elsewhere though, lots of warmth on offer.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely.